Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Engelbert from the Center for Policy, Research, and Development Studies of the University of San Jose-Recoletos, and I will be your host for this session. Thank you so much for joining us in today's webinar. I'm sure everyone's already excited for what we are about to learn, especially from our invited guest speakers. And in fact, we're very honored to have them with us today. So just for the information of everyone, today's webinar is absolutely free. And of course, this is brought to you by our institution, University of San Jose-Recoletos, in particular, the Center for Policy, Research, and Development Studies, together with our Recoletos Techno Hub and the assistance also of the Innovation and Technology Support Office. So before we get started to the session proper, I'd like to go over a few items for you to know the mechanics in participating in today's event. First, we encourage you, everyone, to state your full name and affiliation when chatting or commenting or asking questions, so we'll be able to acknowledge you properly. Second, just in case you've got an open access, we encourage you to keep your microphone muted and camera disabled throughout the program. This is to ensure that the spotlight is focused only on our speakers. Third, you may send your greetings, comments, questions, and concerns through our chat box. And fourth, we would like to remind the Assembly that this is an academic and professional affair, so please observe decency and proper decorum. Always be courteous and respectful with your words. Finally, a link to the evaluation form and certificate will be flashed towards the end of our webinar. So please wait for the program to end before logging out. You can only get the generated e-certificate only after completing the evaluation form. Please take note that the link for the evaluation form and certificate will remain active only for 2 hours right after the session. Beyond that, participants will be unable to avail the e-certificates. This is to ensure that only those who are with us real time will be entitled to the certificate. So without further ado, allow me to call in Ms. Shanine Sevilla, one of our staff in CPRDS, to lead us in the opening prayer.
Hi.
Let us put ourselves in the presence of the Lord in the name of the Father, the Son, of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Father, we offer everything and thank you for everyone gathered here today. May we ask you for your blessing and guidance so that the activities set for this undertaking be successful. We ask you to open our eyes to see the wonderful fruit of this activity. We ask you to open our ears so that we may retain the knowledge. Open our minds, us to think voice, put us with understanding, cooperation, and peace in fulfilling our responsibilities. Open our hearts so that we may receive your everlasting love. Open our spirit so that we may know that you are with us all throughout the day. We ask this all in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. In the name of cooperation and peace and purity. The Lord and
One of our staff in CPRDS, to lead us in the opening prayer. Thank you, Shanine. May I invite everyone to stand for the singing the Philippine National Anthem.
Sa
All right. So, good morning once again. I hope you're excited. Today's webinar is entitled Government Innovation Policy and Funding Programs for Filipino Startups. This session underscores the need to build a strong partnership or collaboration between the government and the academia, especially that the academia can be the source of high value research and innovation. The startup ecosystem in the Philippines is young, vibrant, and full of potential. Startups introduce innovative products and create new business models
Recording in progress.
that address changing societal and market needs. And as such, it is important for the government to support the development of the startup ecosystem to foster an innovative and entrepreneurial culture in the country. Fortunately, the nurturing of startup ecosystems are at the forefront of the government's initiatives in forging partnerships, bridging gaps, and enabling stakeholders to ensure a competitive, innovative, and inclusive Philippines. And that is why some of the members, representatives from our government, are here to give us some input. So, to welcome us all in this event and explain further the role of the government in propagating the culture of innovation, let us all hear the keynote address of our beloved Recoletos Techno Hub consultant from Australia, the current CEO and Executive Director of Access Asia PAC, Dr. Russell Wolf. Good morning, Dr. Russell.
Good morning, Sir Engelbert. Thank you so much. Now, my first question, of course, needs to be, can everybody see and hear me?
Yes, sir, Ross. We can hear you, sir.
That's excellent. Thank you. I'm speaking to you today from lovely Davao. I've got some work here at the moment, so unfortunately I'm not able to be in Cebu in person, but looking forward to returning to Cebu and Recoletos in a couple of months' time. Thank you very much. Thanks, of course, to Sir Jesse, Sir Engelbert, all our participants, those from the Recoletos community and those from government. Our speakers today, who I'm very much looking forward to hearing from, Director Maria Arbon and Sir Joshua Dolman. And we were fortunate enough to have Sir Joshua as one of our speakers at the Recoletos Technology Business Incubator Boot Camp a couple of months ago in Cebu. And it was Sir Joshua's presentation then that actually triggered today's event. Sir Joshua spoke at that stage about funding programs that the Philippine government had initiated to assist startup companies and innovative activities. And it was a fantastic presentation. We were very, very grateful. And we asked Sir Joshua back to give that presentation, or give a presentation to a broader audience and community. And he graciously agreed, as did Director Arbon. I won't take too long today at all. You're not here to see or listen to me. You are here to see and listen to our distinguished speakers, who are far more familiar with the specifics of the Philippine government ecosystem than I am. I would, however, just like to mention a few things in preparation or prior to our distinguished speakers that people might like to keep in mind as they listen to those presentations and as they consider how they might engage with the Philippine government as researchers, as students, as faculty members, and entrepreneurs in the future. Now, I'm going to try to share my screen, which I hope I have control over. If you would just bear with me for one moment. Okay, now I will ask if you do have visibility on my screen at the moment. Sir Engelbert, Sir Jesse?
Yes, affirmative, Sir Ross.
You do?
We can see your screen.
Thank you. I'm always a bit nervous about virtual presentations because everything that can go wrong has gone wrong with me at some stage or another. So just some general principles to take into today's event. We often hear the phrase or variations thereof, the great partnerships share common goals. We hear that in collaborative activity, general partnership activity in the context of business, academia, you name it. So great partnerships share common goals. And make no mistake, government, industry, and academia in the Philippines, research is that relationship is well and truly a partnership. It's one of the principles I want people to keep in mind as they go through today. Do they share common goals? Well, we're often told that they do. I would suggest that that is absolutely incorrect. And it can actually be a mistake to take that philosophy and that attitude into a partnership arrangement. We often have, every day, we have partnerships that simply do not share common goals, but nonetheless share success for both parties. Now, if I call a plumber in to fix my pipes at home because I have a leaking tap, my goal is to not have a leaking tap. The plumber's goal is to earn income. So we have two very different objectives there, goals there. They're not common in any way, shape, or form, but nonetheless, they lead to success and satisfaction for both parties. It's no different at all from the partnership and relationship between government, academia, and the startup community. To give an example, if we have a look at the drivers, the motivations associated with those of us working in the academic space, we all go into academia for different reasons. It can be the desire to contribute to social good. It can be the opportunity to pursue things with intellectual freedom. It can be curiosity-based, the opportunity and ability to pursue new knowledge, undertake new discovery activity, curiosity satisfaction. It's often the opportunity for individual impact and personal recognition that one may not have when working with a corporate team, for instance, in a company environment. So we have a whole range of reasons why people enter academia. You can talk about similar drivers associated with going into the entrepreneurial environment, starting a new business, being your own boss, again, freedom to pursue your goals, etc., etc. When we partner with government, well, government also has its own objectives and its own goals, and this is fairly universal regardless of the nation, whether we're talking about a regional government, national government, or whatever. But governments in general have goals which, a few examples here, stimulation of local industry and economy, engagement with global supply chains. Governments in general, if they're a good government or a well-meaning government, want to see an improvement in the national well-being. That can be social, environmental, it can be health, economic. So government has its own reasons for doing things. The Philippine government specifically describes its government engagement with science, technology, and innovation in the following way, or its objectives: to ensure that science, technology, and innovation are utilized in areas of maximum economic and social benefit for the people. And that is taken from the Harmonized National Research and Development Agenda 2017 to 2022. I'm sorry, I had the wrong dates there. That's actually the most recent one, 2022 to 2028. I would suggest that everybody involved with pursuing government grant opportunities or engaging with government at a research and academic level and business level familiarize themselves with the objectives of the Philippine government in engaging in this space. This document is available for download from the Department of Science and Technology website. I believe there's actually a link on almost the landing page. If not the landing page, it shouldn't take you more than 1 or 2 screens to find. But I would strongly suggest that everybody familiarise themselves with this document, or at least have it to hand for reference. The Harmonised National Research and Development Agenda describes the priority areas for Philippine government funding in this space, and it describes the outcomes that the Philippine government wants to see from its engagement. So please, it is an invaluable reference document. In essence, what the government's objective is to do is to go from research through the innovation pipeline into demonstrable impact in terms of benefit for the Philippine people. In previous presentations, I've described the difference between research, innovation, and impact. But in a nutshell, research is the knowledge discovery. Innovation is where we find an application for that new knowledge. And impact is the benefit that accrues from the application of that research. Again, it doesn't have to be economic. It can be health, it can be social, it can be environmental, but the Philippine government wishes to see direct beneficial impact to its citizens as a result of engagement with the academic, science, technology, and entrepreneurial community. So please do keep that in mind. In its crudest form, think of this as a transaction. When you are discussing with government or thinking about discussing with government the potential of them funding your research, new business, whatever it may happen to be. I've worked on both sides of the fence. I've presented to governments on behalf of myself and others for funding, and I've also been on many different government panels for the assessment of such applications. So I am speaking with some experience on both sides of the fence. What government wants to see is not an applicant saying, I want government funding so I can do X, Y, and Z. Now, whether that be as a business person, a research academic, a student looking for a scholarship, whatever it may happen to be. Unfortunately, government, and I tend to be a lot more direct than perhaps others might be, government doesn't care about you. Government cares about what you can do for it, or by extension, its citizenry. So what government wants to hear is, my project, whatever that might happen to be, will further the government's objective of new jobs, import replacement, generating exports, whatever it might happen to be, by employing an additional 5 people, generating outputs of X, Y, and Z, increasing the Philippines' manufacturing capability, whatever it may happen to be. Very crudely, do think of this as a transaction statement. So we don't want to hear, I want, so I can. We want to hear, this is what I'm going to do for you. Now, I am conscious of the time. I think we do have another few minutes. I'm actually going to flip over a little bit and just state a few words about the government and what the government might be wise to keep in mind as they engage. Philippines, by the way, has done extraordinarily well over the last few years in promoting innovation. These are the 2020 results from the Global Innovation Index rankings. And in only the space of 6 years, the Philippines has gone from a ranking of 100 to a ranking of 50 in 2020. There are a huge range of inputs and outputs associated with the Global Innovation rankings, Global Innovation Index rankings. I'm not going to go into those in any way, shape or form, but I do just want to recognise the vast improvement and commend the Philippine government on such a great result over the last few years. The The 2021 figures, I didn't have that particular graphic, but Philippines sits 51st in 2021, and we will be expecting the Global Innovation Index rankings for 2022 to come out within the next few weeks. They tend to come out in late September, early October as a general rule. So I will be keeping a close eye to see how things go. And of course, there's COVID impacts and all the rest of it. So I'm taking the last year or so, or will be taking the last year or so with that in mind. Just want to point something out. This is a graph which I've used for a number of years now. It's varied a little bit. These are actually 2018 figures. They're pulled up from the World Bank. More recent figures show a slight variation, but the general trend is maintained. I make the note here, this is business startup procedures associated with starting a business. So this can be compliance against taxation regulation, registration with the various authorities, barangay level, national level, regional level, and so on and so forth. Philippines, and this is for an LLC, limited liability company, a small LLC. This holds across non-profits and other forms of business activity as well. We see the Philippines, unfortunately, does not rank well when it comes to the complexity of beginning a new business. And if we transpose this to time rather than procedures, and I don't have that graphic in front of me at the moment, we find it can take an average of 3 months for a typical business to get registered and compliant in the Philippines. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, we find that the countries which generally make it to the top of the various ease of doing business rankings, and that usually flips between Singapore and New Zealand on a somewhat annual basis, tend to have the lowest compliance burden associated with starting a new business. So overall, we can make the statement that transitioning economies tend to suffer from a far higher regulatory burden than developed economies. And this does absolutely have a negative impact on business and entrepreneurial activity. You can take any number of metrics and you'll find a causal link between the complexity associated with the regulatory environment, unnecessary complexity associated with the regulatory environment, and the impact that has on innovative activity. In fact, you can actually graph this. This is EU. We don't have Asia on this. I do have the ASEAN figures somewhere, but I'm sorry, I haven't got all my notes and so forth with me at the moment. So I took one of the old EU snapshots that I've used. This is from 2012, so it's 10 years old. But again, it's useful to demonstrate trends. So we find here that innovation and regulation are genuinely inversely related. It's not necessarily linear, particularly at the extremes, but nonetheless, there is a relationship. Ease of doing business. In general, you find that ease of doing business, which we can relate back to the regulatory compliance regime, as that becomes more complex, innovation performance tends to decline. So I'll finish with the statement to our speakers. I'm sure they would agree with me. I know the Philippine government is doing everything it can to reduce the regulatory burden. But overall, the priority for any government must be, if it wants to stimulate innovative activity, to reduce unnecessary compliance and bureaucracy. Now, that's not at the cost of sacrificing necessary regulatory frameworks. And there's an interesting correlation which, if you have time, you might want to have a look at. I noticed this a while ago, and I find it fascinating. Food safety regulations. There are few people who would argue that food safety regulations are necessary. Um, and if you actually graph or have a look at the countries in the world with the toughest food safety regulations, those countries also happen to populate the most innovative countries, top 10, and ease of doing business. So, in other words, they're countries which have recognized the importance of necessary necessary regulatory and frameworks, and focused on those necessary and robust frameworks, and at the same time reduce the unnecessary and regulatory compliance activity. So just an interesting thing there. As I say, I'm sure there's a couple of papers in there, and if I ever get the chance, I might actually do that, put pen to paper, and publish that through our host university today, University of San Jose-Recoletos. I will finish there and hand back to our host, and then our speakers, and I'll be available to take questions, of course, via the chat function at the end of our speakers' presentations. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sir Ross. That was highly informative, sir. Thank you, Sir Ross. Again, without further ado, we'll now proceed to the session proper. And so, each just for the information of everyone, each speaker will be given 45 minutes for his or her sharing of input, and 20 minutes will be allotted towards the end of this session for a panel forum where all our virtual attendees will have the opportunities to raise questions. Okay, so now allow me to introduce our first speaker. Our speaker finished his Bachelor of Science in Information Technology from St. Paul University, Dumaguete in 2012, and Master of Development Communication from the University of the Philippines, Open University last December 2021. During his years in St. Paul University, he was the editor-in-chief of the monthly Paulinian from 2008 to 2009, and the president of then Paulinian Supreme Student Government from 2011 to 2012. He was also awarded as one of the outstanding students of the Philippines of Central Visayas in 2012 and one of the 30 outstanding students of the Philippines in 2012 at national level, with awarding held in the Malacanang Palace in 2012. A YMCA Outstanding Student 2012 in Negros Oriental, and he also represented the country as a delegate in various international conferences, including Singapore, Malaysia, Japan, and India. He worked as a technical support engineer in the IT operations department of a technology company in Dumaguete City for more than 2 years, and as a copy editor for 2 years. He is recently a part-time university instructor in St. Paul University, teaching IT subjects including IT fundamentals, desktop publishing, information security and assurance for more than 5 years. Currently, an Information Technology Officer 1 and the Regional 7 Focal of the ICT Industry Development Bureau, designated as the Public Information Officer of the office, and the lead administrator of VC2's FB page, and served as OIC of Negros Oriental for a certain period. A recent YouTuber who discusses tech tutorials through his channel Tech Talks with Pambansang IT Guy and a Google Certified Educator Level 1. Dear friends, help me welcome from DICT, Mr. Joshua Eleazar Domen.
Hi, Sir Engelbert. Am I
Good
audible?
morning, Sir Josh. Yes, sir.
Good
Yes, sir.
morning.
Very much.
It's nice to see you once again, no? This time virtually. So we were together sa boot camp a few months back, and
Right. Yes, sir. Welcome back, sir
yeah,
Josh.
thank you for inviting me once again. So also my greetings go to Sir Ross, to Sir Jess, and to everyone else who makes up the team, no, in USJR, and also to our USJR community and our attendees for our webinar today. Good morning. So allow me to share my slides. All right. Can you see my slides, Sir Engelbert? Or
Yes, yes, sir Josh.
all right. All right, so thank you for inviting us in the ACT to speak, no, before our attendees today, and I hope that at the end of my discussion, there will be some of you, perhaps all of you, who would avail of our programs in the ICT, or not only in the ICT, no, but to the other agencies as well, no, because there are actually a lot of opportunities in store for our startups, no, and you are right that our academy is really a big factor for our innovation. No? We have a lot of talents and pools of startups coming from the academies. And so this is really high time for us to promote the program. So in DICT, we have what we call as DSDAP, or the Digital Startup Development and Acceleration Program. This is actually the umbrella program of our support of our initiatives intended for our startups. And to begin with my presentation, during our boot camp last, a few months back, I remember that I asked a question if everyone in the attendees were familiar of the Innovative Startup Act, to which I was really surprised because no one knew that there was actually an act, no? There is a law enacted for the support of our startups, no? So Republic Act 11337 in 2019, or the Innovative Startup Act, provides benefits and programs to strengthen, promote, and develop the Philippine startup ecosystem by developing the Philippine Startups Development Program, or PSDP. Now, in that law, no, in RA 11337, there are actually tripartite agencies that need to realize the support for startups. So together with DTI and DOST, we actually help promote the startups, and so as mandated by law, we should actually develop programs, no, and we should actually provide grants and support to our startups. So whether we like it or not, as mandated by law, we really have to provide opportunities, especially for funding, to our startups and would-be startups. No? So I am happy and I am glad that from DTI, Mananet, who is also our partner in realizing our goals, is one of the speakers for this morning. And with the UST, no, since time immemorial, even before the enactment of this law, of RA 11337, DOST has actually been giving and doling out funds already, no, since time immemorial. And now, together with DOST, DTI, and DICT, are actually mandated to provide grants, no, for our startups. So in 2020, there was a DICT, DOST, and DTI joint administrative order to which the Philippine Startup Development Program was developed. And even if there is a change of administration, even if the secretaries and the underlying undersecretaries have been changed since that time, still the law must be enacted. All right? So we now have a new secretary in the ICT, so as with DTI. And regardless of such, the support and the realization of RA 11337 must be enacted. So in DICT, we have a bureau to which I am the focal for Region 7, which is the ICT Industry Development Bureau, or IIDB. We're actually the ones in charge to realize such law and such support for startups. Now, Just a briefer of IIDB. So the ICT Industry Development Bureau helps fulfill one of the ICT's missions to ensure sustainable growth of Philippine ICT industry, resulting to creation of more jobs. Since we have from our missions of the ICT, IIDB is anchored to this mission. Now, we support activities and implementations in Central Visayas, especially catered for the development of a digital Philippines in the countryside, which includes we support ICT councils. And as a matter of fact, I am in Tagbilaran, Bohol right now, and we are actually doing some engagements and initiatives with the ICT councils here in Tagbilaran. And so we also support online freelancers since they are part and parcel of the ICT industry, no? The startups as well. And even before the law regarding the Startup Innovative Act has been enacted, there have been also actually a lot of opportunities and initiatives that IIDB has conducted. No? So we also support BPOs, the creatives, LGUs, and NGAs, which includes DOST, DTI, and DILG, among others. So going back to DSDAP, or the Digital Startup Development and Acceleration Program of DICT, this is the mother program of a lot of initiatives and a lot of programs that we cater for the support of startups. Now, to fully strategize initiatives and support programs for startups and startup enablers, DICT launched its Digital Startup Development and Acceleration Program just this year, no? With the primary goal of sparking an innovative and competitive mindset among innovators, enablers, and startup enthusiasts. We have drafted 6 major components for DSDAP this year. So, but prior to these components, IIDB actually, as I have mentioned earlier, we have actually conducted various support programs for startups even before this DSDAP came into being. No? So a flagship program, as a matter of fact, is the Philippine Startup Challenge, and later on I will be speaking into details about PSC, to which I believe USJR can avail of, no? Especially that this is an academic community, and PSC, or the Philippine Startup Challenge, could actually be of great help to our would-be startups, no, who are in the academe. So the specific here are the specific objectives of DSDAP: to make information on statistics, events, programs, and benefits for startups accessible. Build partnership with startup ecosystem players and LGUs for possible collaboration. Establish networks of innovators, and also for the provision of support to digital tech startups through financial grant geared towards product development, marketing, capacity building, and operational requirements. But generally speaking, DSDAP would actually try to establish a strong Philippine startup ecosystem by providing support that will enrich and strengthen the competitive advantage of Filipino startups. Because to be honest, no, the startup ecosystem in the Philippines, not only here in the region, no, is quite nascent and quite new, no, although there have been a presence of startups. But when we compare our startup ecosystem with our neighboring countries in the ASEAN, we have to do more, and we have to exert more efforts, especially from the government, from the academe, to be at par, no, with our neighboring countries as regards the startup ecosystem. And so DSDAP is very timely, and it is very helpful, especially when we gear towards such objective, or towards such goal, no, to develop our startup ecosystem, not only here in our region, but also in the entire country. No? Although major hubs like Manila, Cebu, and Davao have been making it big in terms of the startup ecosystem, but we also have to realize the fact that there is also some parts in the countryside that need development, no? And so DSDOP is here to help, and I hope that I will be in the next few slides. I'll be speaking and I'll be putting into details the components of DSDOP, and I hope that in one of those components, or perhaps two or three, the USJR community can avail of. No. All right. So this is our matrix. No. These are the components that make up our DSDAP. No, we have the scale, raise, step up, the startup grant, which I hope will be of help to everyone listening, the Startup Philippine website, and the innovation studios. No? So one by one, I will be detailing out what each component has in store for us. And I really hope that you would take notes, no? So that at the end of this session, if you are interested, no? If you are curious, then we could actually communicate after, and then we could open to you the wonderful opportunities that PSDAP or DSDAP provides, no? From DICT. Right, so these are the intervention points of the
Na,
SDAP.
ORT
So,
na lang di wala. Patay tani. Picture na tanggal na.
Uy, ano, palit ko.
so I think some intermission number. No, just kidding. So, by the way, in the umbrella of the ecosystem in the tripartite agreement, DICT is actually in charge for the early stage, no, of the startups, especially in the ideation stage. That is why we have a lot of initiatives and activities geared towards the ideation. No? Ideation is the stage wherein there might be no product yet, wala pa ay MVP or most valuable product ang usa ka startup, no? And so perhaps there are those, especially our students, who have ideas, who have thought of some innovative solutions, but they have not they have not created the prototype yet, no? And so they're on the stage of thinking of ideation, wherein how do they develop the product, or how do they where do they start, what should they do, no? So the ICT is actually in charge for that. So as you can see in our intervention points, what we are more concerned of is the improvement of ideas, no? Then once ideas have been generated, the DTI and DOST comes in, no? Especially in the acceleration support, no, and the expansion support. That's where DTI and DOST would really exert their efforts. You know, as a matter of fact, DOST have been providing grants, no, really large amounts of grants for the expansion and the growth, no, of a prototype. No? So each one, scale, raise, step up, the Philippine Startup Challenge and the Startup Grant Fund. These are actually the activities of the ICT, no? Wherein our startups and would-be startups could avail of, and they are housed under the Startup Philippines website, in which I will give full details later. No, we have a special slide for that, wherein our startups can actually register. So we only have one registration for our startups, no? So regardless if you would like to ask for grants or to avail of grants from DTI or from DOST or from DICT, we only have one database for our startups. And DICT is actually in charge for the creation or the development of such website. So first, the first component of DSDAP is SCALE, which stands for Startup Community and Local Enhancement. No? So the startup ecosystem mapping, which is the major highlight or the major um, program of Scale, is a collaborative and participatory data gathering method that explores the current startup initiatives and status in a certain location through a guided discussion with a multi-sectoral and well-represented set of respondents. So startup mapping is really important, especially because we believe in the saying that goes that you cannot manage what you cannot measure. And so we have to measure and we have to map out the status of the startup ecosystem in a certain locality or in a certain city. No? It is important, especially that the intervention points that we have to do or the things that we have to fulfill in order for that locality to prosper really relies and depends on how the community responds to the startup, no? In a sense, well, there are areas or there are cities, especially in the Philippines, that have been already advanced in terms of the startup ecosystem. They have embraced the startup na concept, no? And there are also places which haven't known of what a startup is. They are not familiar with the concept of startup. And so it is important that we know the level, no? We know the maturity level of a certain locality so that the intervention points that we'll be designing for such locality are correct, no? And are right and really fit for such. No? So if a certain city needs an extensive support because the community is really strong, then we have a special intervention point for such. If a city is nascent, if a city still does not know what the concept of startup is, then another set of special intervention points will be provided for them. No? Apples and apples, oranges and oranges. Right? So mapping participants can vary from members of the local government units, academe, very important, no? I believe and I remember na during our startup mapping in Cebu just recently, also a few months back, USJR was there, no? And we really appreciate that USJR was present to represent the academe along with all other institutions in Cebu. National government agencies, startup founders, enablers, and other key ecosystem players. So this activity is imperative and vital to conduct as it guides and serves as a basis for conducting appropriate intervention programs for the needs of the startup community. No? I'm not sure if some of you have seen the K-drama nga Startup, no? Are there attendees here? Maybe you can raise your hand.
Yes.
Yes, si Sir Engelbert.
Yes, sir.
And I think also there is also a Philippine adaptation, no? I think they are on the works already. I think it's GMA who is also doing an adaptation.
Yes.
And I really hope, no?
Bea Alonso and Alden Richards.
Yes, sir.
Josh.
Imuhang ka-look-alike, Sir Engelbert.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I hope our students who are also attending us here, perhaps if they are not familiar with the startup concept or they're not familiar with the startup terminologies, they perhaps could watch sa Netflix, no, or perhaps sa upcoming na Philippine adaptation because truth be told, I have when we do our caravans, when we did our caravans recently, especially in Negros Oriental for the Philippine Startup Challenge, no, we would always ask if they are familiar with the concept of startups, and surprisingly, they know of the concept because they watched the K-drama. No? And so I really hope, fingers crossed, no, na the Philippine adaptation also would highlight, no, the concepts of startups, the terminologies behind startups, and so our student participants would also appreciate, no? All right, so the objectives of Scale is to assess the situation of the startup ecosystem in the local. I think Ma'am Nanette just came in. Hello, Ma'am Nanette. Good morning. You are next after this. So be familiar with the available resources and initiatives being conducted for the startups in the local, and give baseline information on the needs of the startup community. Really, baseline information really are very vital and very necessary, especially for preparing and designing the intervention points that we set, that the government sets for the certain locality. No? We could not provide intervention points that are not fit for a city that is already advanced. No? We could not prepare a very simple intervention point for such, because what they need are advanced and more comprehensive support. No? And similarly, if a city or if a local is on its nascent stage, then we could not prepare intervention points that are really advanced and are not fit for them. No? So there is actually a maturity level for a startup community, and we base such intervention points according to this maturity level that the city has after being mapped. All right. So startup mapping is synonymous and tantamount to the scale na program of DICT. So here are the target outputs: conduct startup mapping activities in the digital cities across the regions, formulation of a database of the results of the mapping activities, integration of the startup mapping results on the startup portal, and recalibration of intervention points of the DSDAP. So we don't stop in the startup mapping alone. No? Once we conduct a startup mapping, actually it's just a simple mapping, no, of the key players, no, of the academies in a certain locality. But we don't stop in the mapping alone, because we conduct or we draft intervention points for such. So if there are things that they need, no, if they lack something, then we can design. Sorry, I think I accidentally stopped my sharing. Okay, so we can design intervention points for such. No, so if they need or if they lack something on a certain point, no, then our intervention points would concentrate on such. No? So if there are points that they are really strong at, say for example, they have a pool of talents, no? They have a pool of community that can support startups, then what we can do is to monitor such talents and provide more opportunities for them. No? All right, so this is the startup mapping process from DICT, like we identified cities, until we conduct the mapping session, and then we launch, after launching the ecosystem mapping results, there will be recalibration and implementation of startup intervention activities. No? That's what I've been saying, na we don't stop in identifying the city alone, or we don't stop in the mapping alone, but we draft or we design the intervention activities for that locality after being mapped. And just recently, no, just this August 10, together with Ma'am Nanette, we conducted our startup ecosystem mapping and road mapping session in Dumaguete City and Silliman University. It is for the reason that usually ang startup mapping, we conduct that every after 2 to 3 years, no, to check on the maturity level of such locality. So in 2019, we had our first mapping session with Dumaguete, and from there we found out that they were still on its nascent stage, no, the very early stage of a startup maturity level. And just this August 10, we found out that they are now on their foundational, no, na stage, no, and so in Cebu City, just recently also a few months back, they were foundational, and I believe na they are going sa after being deliberated, they will be leveling up also to an accelerating stage, no? So fingers crossed. Until we reach that stage, ang pinakalas na stage is inspirational, just like the Silicon Valley, no? They are an inspirational startup ecosystem. So wala pa yung nakaabot ana in the Philippine setting, and we hope, no, fingers crossed, we'll reach such point, no. I believe DTI also conducts their own startup mapping. Perhaps Ma'am Nanette will expound on that later. In Tagbilaran City, I think this September 10, a few days to go, no? They will be conducting together with Kubo their own startup mapping. So we are really in support of such. So, all right, so we move on to the RACE na program, which stands for Raising Awareness and Inspiring the Startup Ecosystem. So basically, RACE is a program for startup events and initiatives. No? So the RACE project covers a vast array of needs-based activities that aims to introduce and enhance the idea and concept of a startup to various stakeholders, with the end goal of inculcating an ICT-based entrepreneurship spirit that will foster and inspire creation and development of local startups. So such activities are not limited to fora, seminars, short courses, and coaching and mentoring sessions. So basically, RACE provides awareness activities regarding startups, no? Especially that in the countryside, aside from major cities, no, aside from major hubs, they know already of the concept of startups. But when you go to the outskirts, no, when you go to the far-flung communities, they are not yet aware of what a startup is. And so what we intend in the RACE program is to create more awareness, especially for the far-flung areas or far-flung communities in the countryside, no, so that they could be aware of the concept of startup, and they would actually avail of our programs not only in the ICT but also in other agencies, no, because we have a lot of support programs and initiatives in store for our startups. So the objectives of RACE is to introduce and enhance stakeholders' understanding and appreciation on the basic concepts of a startup, provide relevant, impactful, and needs-based awareness activities that address gaps in the local startup community, and foster collaboration among key startup ecosystem stakeholders. So what are the target outputs? So conduct at least 2 startup awareness activities per region. For 2022, wherein we have actually accomplished already last June, and formulate an overall monitoring report and database for the conducted events based on the data gathered from the registration and post-evaluation links. So we have divided our awareness activities into codes, no? Startup 100 is informational. This is the awareness about startups, no? And this includes the first steps of awareness campaigns, no, for stakeholders, no, especially for those who do not know or who are unaware yet of what a startup ecosystem is. So Startup 100 are the activities for them. Then we have Startup 101, or the basics, which includes activities of the building blocks of startups. No? Stakeholders might belong from the general public to targeted groups who have moderate knowledge about startups. And perhaps they want to have introductory sessions on concepts, frameworks, and tools necessary to succeed as a potential startup founder. No? Then we have Startup 102, which is the advanced stage, no, of our RACE na activities. This includes design thinking, ideation, validation workshops perhaps, pitching competitions, mentoring, and scaling. No? This is particularly on startup concepts or activities that equip the stakeholders to further their startup journey. So perhaps there is a presence of startups already, and they want to further, no, develop their startup na knowledge, no? And so we provide activities such as design thinking or of validation and mentoring, no, that will cater to the development of their startups. Then we have Startup 103, which is any PSC or Philippine Startup Challenge related activity. Just recently, we've been doing caravans already, no? We started here in Bohol, then it followed in Negros Oriental just recently, and by next week, we will go to Siquijor. And finally, we will conduct caravans in Cebu, no? And I hope we could also visit USJR one day to do our caravan, no? In PSC, so that it can create awareness, no, to our students to join in the competition. Later on, I will inform you, or I will detail out what is in store if you join the competition now on its 7th year. No? So in Region 7, in Central Visayas, what we've been doing to support the race na program is that we've been conducting the Startup Thursdays. So aside from joining a lot of gatherings, no, or of community activities with startups, what we do, or our initiative in the region, is that we conduct the Startup Thursdays, and it's already on its 3rd year, actually, no, since 2020. We started Startup Thursdays in 2020 during the height of pandemic, where our travels were limited or restricted, no, or our face-to-face sessions were limited. And so what we did was we created, or we developed, or we organized a webinar every Thursdays of June, because June is the National ICT Month, no? And so in celebration of the ICT month as well, every Thursday of the whole month, we invite speakers, especially startup founders and startup enablers, to speak and to create awareness for our listeners, or for our audience. And so we see each other again next year for our 4th Startup Thursdays, no? So now going on to our Philippine Startup Challenge, which is one of the flagship programs of the startup support, no, from DICT. So the Philippine Startup Challenge is actually on its 7th year na. That's why this year we call it PSC 7, no? Although you might wonder why is it on its 7th year na nga, DICT is still on its 6th year as an agency. So actually this has been passed on already, no, ang Philippine Startup Challenge, or PSC, from DOST, no, in partnership with DTI. Now we have PSC, no, sa DICT. We own, or we implement PSC sa DICT. So the Philippine Startup Challenge, its overall goal is to reinforce Filipinos to create innovative and relevant ICT products and services, all the while providing solutions to social problems. So that's what differs, no, between a startup and a brick and mortar business. So all startups are businesses, but not all businesses are startups. So what differs a startup from regular businesses is that it tries to solve a social issue, or a social problem. That's why in government, or in the ICT especially, we really support the concept of startups, because it tries to solve social issues, no? So the target outcome is for aspiring startup founders from ideation to MVP stage to establish a rich network with entrepreneurial mindsets in ICT, mentorship, and collaboration. So in PSC, perhaps you would like to join out to our students. For those who are aware of it already, it doesn't need, or your team doesn't have to have a product or a prototype already before you join the competition. Even if idea pa lang na, no? Even if you still have an idea that that is just behind your brains lang, no? And you want it to be further developed, PSC could be of help to you as long as it solves a social problem. Okay? So in our 2021 run of the Philippine Startup Challenge, there were actually 2 categories, the professional and the student, no? So last year, our winner for the professional category is Team Lift. They are actually affiliated with UP Cebu, no? They have fabricated their prototype with UP Cebu nga Fab Lab, which is, Ma'am Nanette is also the woman behind such. This is her brainchild, ang Fab Lab. So, what Team Lift did or what they developed actually was a device, since during that time, no, during the pandemic, there were no pilot schools available. And the founder of Lyft is actually a pilot. No? And I think, I'm not sure if he lost his job, but he concentrated in developing a prototype, in helping student pilots to learn even if the pilot schools were closed. And so what they did or what they created was a simulation device, no, for training to become a pilot. And so they won nationwide, no. They won nationally 3rd place overall, no. So congratulations and hats off to them. Now for the student category, it was Team Fur Rescue of Cebu Technological University who emerged as the regional champion, no. In their application, what they did was they created a mobile application for stray dogs and cats, no, since animal shelters were already full in Cebu, and so they created a mobile application for would-be adopters, no, and a database between and among animal shelters, especially so that adopters can adopt easily, no, mga stray dogs and cats. And so they emerged as the regional champion. And so really hope, no, I hope, fingers crossed, that we have entries coming from USJR, Adelante, no, to join our PSC na competition. Actually, this for rescue na application, no, this is actually a thesis na project of the team, no, of the classmates there in CTU, and so they submitted it as an entry. They just injected the entrepreneurship na component, no, and so they won eventually, no, as the regional champion. So what are the requirements, no? Allow me na lang, no, to allow me to promote our PSC na lang, no, especially that we have student participants joining us here. So the registration is through the provided registration links of the DICT regional offices, wherein I will be flashing it later, and I hope you would take note of the portals, no, although we have posted this in our Facebook page already. So another important submission requirement is the video pitch, no? So it is a 3 to 5 minute video pitch wherein you pitch your idea, no? Or if you have your application already or your prototype already, then you can also do so. But it is not a product demo, all right? A video pitch is not a product demo, but rather it is more of an awareness and a briefer of what your idea or of your product is all about, no? So aside from the video pitch, a pitch deck is also important. So pitch deck is perhaps your presentation slides that is accompanied with your video pitch, no? While perhaps someone is pitching, the slideshow is being presented, no? The pitch deck. So what should be included in your video pitch and pitch deck? First, you start with the problem description, because once again, what differs between a startup and a regular business is that it tries to solve a social problem or social issue. And so it is but fitting and proper to begin your pitch with the problem, no, that you are trying to solve. Then, aside from the problem, the target market segment, or who should benefit from your idea or your solution. And then you should also provide your solution, no? This is the highlight of your pitch deck, no? Also the features, what is behind, what are the components of your application. Then progress or traction, if there's any, especially if you have already developed your application or your solution, then if you have progress or traction, then you can include such. And also the proposed use of funds from investors. Say for example, if the ICT will be providing 500,000 to 1 million grant to you to support your idea, then tell us how do you fractionate the expenses. No? Say for example, you have a fraction of the fund for operational expenses or for the payment or salary of your programmers who are behind such, no? Anything, no, that is related to the use of funds, no, from investors. So video pitch guidelines, the duration is 3 to 5 minutes, and the content should be the following that I have mentioned earlier. The video should include an introduction of the startup founders, no, and explain the rationale behind the startup creation. So, by the way, who should compose the team? There should be 3 members and 1 mentor. No, 3 students and 1 mentor. And the mentor could be a teacher or could be a non-teaching staff, no, coming from the same institution or from the same university. No, for as long as he or she would help mentor the students, no, he or she would help guide the students. And say for example, no, what if you are sending 2 teams, no, and you only have 1 mentor for both teams? That is okay, no? A mentor could be the mentor for all teams that the school would be sending. All right? Now, the video should not be more than 5 minutes long and should utilize the natural voices of the founders. No text-to-speech voice enhancement should be allowed. So it so happened, no, in last year's competition, they have one team has a lot of things to say and they could not encapsulate it in a 3-minute video pitch na lang, no? So what they did, they had a speed up of their voice, no? And kabantay mo ano no, kana gani mga commercial of mga medicines or mga supplements, like ang blank ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamitin gamot sa anumang uri ng sakit, and di ba gi-speed up nila na, no? And that's what they did also katong a team, and so they were reprimanded right then and there because instead of the judges or panelists concentrating on their idea, they concentrated on catching up, no, what the team was saying. And so let us eliminate such, no? Let us encapsulate and put into 3 to 5 minutes the important ones lang, the important details and nothing else. All right? So try to include all founders in the video. So this is the criteria for judging, no, or for the panelists to consider in giving you points, no? I will not perhaps give into details, no, but these are the points to consider: 25% for viability, 25% for relevance, 20% for impact, 20% for creativity, and 10% for presentation. And the questions there are basically the questions that might be raised during the panel, no? Because after submitting your video pitch, we will shortlist the top 5 in the region. And once you are called back, no, once your team is called back as the top 5, there will be a separate pitching competition, no, the regional pitching competition, wherein the panelists will try to ask you questions with such points for consideration, aning mga criteria questions. All right? So there will be a pre-screening process. So by the way, this is open for this is open for senior high or college level nga team, and it could be a mix of both for as long as they belong to the same institution or university. I'm not sure if na by senior high ang USJR, no? I'm not sure.
Yes, sir.
Sir Angel.
Josh.
So if that's the case, and we have also ideas coming from the senior high level, and perhaps they want to mix with the college level, that is possible, no, Sir Engelbert, and to the rest of the USJR community, for as long as they belong to the same institution. So This is open to all student-initiated startups with software or IoT-enabled technologies in the ideation to minimum viable product stage. Once again, to put emphasis, no, it doesn't mean that you must have a prototype or a working prototype already, or there must be an existing application already. Bahala na og wala pa kayo na-develop. It doesn't mean nga kailangan na nasa Google Play Store or App Store, no, ang inyong application. No. Even idea lang. No, I remember there have been a lot of competitors or teams in the past seasons of PSC wherein what they did, no, to put into graphics their imagination, no, their ideas. What they did was they used Canva or they used Photoshop to illustrate their application, no, sa ilahang pitch deck. And so for those who have ideas and they have no MVP yet or they don't have prototype yet, you can also do such. No, in PSC we are not strict whether you have a prototype or not, and there is also no bearing, no. It doesn't mean that if you have a prototype then you can win the competition. I remember sa professional level category, no, last year, our regional winner, it was not Team Lift who won in the region, no, it was another team. Nga they created an application for wedding, no, for wedding preparations, and so they created. Their idea was to create a database between wedding coordinators, and their startup team's name was Say Yes, no, in relation to the wedding concepts, no. But their pitch deck is just a representation. They don't have an actual product already, no. I believe they used Photoshop to illustrate what they wanted, no, with their idea that they wanted to present. Right? So it doesn't mean walay bearing if you already have a product, no, it doesn't matter, no, in PSC. So the student team must be currently enrolled at the time of the competition. As a matter of fact, there is a certification that we have prepared, no, to really certify that members are actually enrolled, no, in the school. Then the mentors are highly encouraged to participate in the ICT-led mentors bootcamps. Although the mentors bootcamp for the ICT is already done and finished a couple of weeks ago, no, but it's okay, no, it's okay if the mentors haven't joined our mentors bootcamps. No? This is a consideration. So there is a school clearance, and in the registration link, especially for the mentors, no, because there is a separate mentors link and a students link. So kani mga video pitch deck, this will be submitted by the mentor sa ilahang portal and not by the students. Okay? So these are our registration links. All right? So perhaps you could take a screen cap of this, or you can take a picture of this. No, these are very important. Actually, this, if you could also visit our Facebook page in the ICT, this is also pinned, no? Nakapin siya sa very top of the page, so you can easily access such, no? If in case you already have, if you are ready to join the competition, these are the links, no? And the deadline of submission is approaching very quick, no? Our submission portals will close on September 30, no? This month. And so perhaps we could double our time, no? If we have teams here who are interested. And you might ask, what is in store, no? Sir Josh, what is in store for us if we join and if we win? So aside from the bragging rights that you are the regional champion, we have our partner. I will say it na lang. Huawei is our partner for this competition, and for last year, for the past year, what they what they doled out as prizes were cloud voucher, no, Huawei cloud voucher. They also doled out to our winning teams Huawei devices, no, and there are networking opportunities as well aside from the plaque, no, that we'll be preparing, and PSC kits that we'll be giving out to the winners. So pre-pandemic, by the way, before pandemic hit us, the major prize for the PSC winning teams was actually a free study tour to China, especially in Huawei Academy, no? Free all expenses paid tour. But you know, COVID happened, pandemic happened, and so that was cut, no? That prize. But who knows, no? Who knows when travel restrictions are already, or travel is already back and restrictions are stopped, no, or are not limited anymore. Who knows, no? Who knows Huawei will be providing such prize again, no? So we never know yet, but fingers crossed, no, that will be back, no? That is our major prize. Now we move on to the Step Up, no? Startup Tailored Empowerment and People-Focused Upskilling Project. And this is actually a relatively new program of the ICT. As a matter of fact, it was just last week where the pilot or the beta testing program in Bicol, Step Up Bicol, was finished, no, or was conducted. So, as an identified need to provide better and targeted support systems in the countryside, the ICT, in collaboration with its industry partners, is planning to launch accelerator initiatives. Although, admittedly, no, we are not that perhaps expert, no, for acceleration na avenues in startups, unlike DTI and DOST, no, who are very already renowned and they're very good in accelerator initiatives already. Kami sa DICT, we are trying to start, no, our accelerator initiatives, and just recently they concluded their pioneering event for Step Up in Bicol, no? So integrated a Step Up or Startup Tailored Empowerment and People-Focused Upskilling Project. These accelerator projects are mostly equity-free, fixed-term, cohort-based programs that include mentorship and educational components. So the end goal of the program is a culminating activity where the participants are challenged to pitch their MVP during the demo day. So mo ni siya di ay ang atong Step Up, no? So there are a lot of objectives in store, but I believe, no, nga what is in store for Step Up is if there are startup teams or startups that want to further develop and accelerate their startup ideas, no, then they can partner with our partner institution. I believe that in our early talks, no, with the steering committee of Step Up in the central office, we have to partner with a TBI in our region, and then we should conduct demo days to our startups, and once a startup is selected, no, then we have a lot of accelerator initiatives with them, mentorships with them, and it's actually funded. I think we have a 500,000 fund for each region for these startups to flourish, no? And so fingers crossed, no? We're still on the talks for our Step Up initiative here in Region 7, and I hope, no, we could also partner with the TBI of USGR and also with if there are startup teams, no, coming from USGR, then perhaps they can avail of such, no? And so the complete guidelines, no, will still be announced coming from our central office, but rest assured that I will reach out to USGR community, no, for this initiative. So target outputs for the startup mentees to produce the needed requirements and worksheets, as well as their MVP by the end of the project. And for the central and regional offices to conduct customized accelerator program designs for startups in the idea stage across the country. All right. Okay, we move on to the very important component of DSDAP, no? Which is the Startup Grant Fund. And really, ano gini siya, kanang blockbuster ni siyas. Kay, bago pa ni siyang gi-announce a few months ago, but I already received immediately private messages or emails asking or inquiring about this. No? This is our Startup Grant Fund from DICT. Although DTI and DOST have their own, no? I believe DTI has their SVF and DOST has their own grant fund, which has been present since time immemorial, no? Even before the startup law has been enacted. And I believe Ma'am Nanette will further explain on DTI's funding opportunities. But for DICT, here I am to explain such. So the Startup Grant Fund is an equity-free fund program amounting from 500,000 to 1 million pesos for digital startups, which aims to facilitate collaboration and partnership among key players in the startup ecosystem, especially to groom or train startups to get better access to further funding and become more investor ready. So these are the supports for the Startup Grant Fund: registration and cost in the application and processing of permits and certificates required for business registration. So, di ba, when you do a startup and when you establish a startup, since it is also a business, there are a lot of permits that you have to accomplish, no? And so, as regards the registration and all costs related to having those permits, that will be part and parcel of the grant fund, no? Use of facilities, office space, equipment, and or services accredited by DICT, especially that we have a Digital Transformation Center or DCT or DTC in all or in mostly all DICT offices, no? Mara siya og co-working space, then they can avail of such if you are a grantee or you're a grantee of the Startup Grant Fund. Then use of your purpose government spaces and facilities of DICT as the registered business address, and registration fees for participation in local or international events, competition, training, seminars, workshops, and other initiatives, no, that are related to the further development of your startup, then the grant fund can be of help, no? Also, endorsement to the concerned government agency for the expedited or prioritized processing of applications, especially with DTI and DOST, no? Especially if we have seen the potentials of a startup and they should already be accelerated more and expanded more, no? Then we can help in endorsing them to the respective agencies. So the rationale, startups who lack access to starter funds do not reach the investable state for venture capitalists to invest in them, and the objectives: by bridging the chasm of early stage funding, the DICT will provide grant fund that will groom startups to get better access to funding by becoming more investable and help investors to lower the risk of investments, no? So once you are tied up with DICT, clients or investors would, di ba, if you are affiliated with the DICT or with any government agency, of course, investors would be more investing on you, knowing that you are affiliated and you are certified by government agencies, right? So these are the benefits. There is full or partial subsidies, like either 500,000 or 1 million. Then there is also mentoring and coaching sessions, especially from our startup founders and enablers. And also networks, because when you do start up, you should have a lot of network of connections, no, to further develop. And so that's what would make up our benefits, no, from our grant fund. So there are categories, proof of concept to prototype. These are those with ideation stages pa lang, no? And also there is the prototype to MVP product, especially katong mga they already have an idea and they have already a prototype, and so they want to mass produce perhaps their product or their prototype. Then these are the categories. Now, going back. So there have already been meetings and public consultations, no, especially this year, as regards the implementation of our startup grant fund. No, although the schedule that you see on your screen now is actually not updated, especially sa May to June, no, since there are still meetings and consultations and preparations that that are being done right now by the steering committee in the central office. And so the deliberation and announcement of grantees are still put on hold, no? We are still awaiting for the guidelines. And so there are still no grantees, no, of our fund as of this time, no, that I am speaking. Wala pa yung nagrantan since the guidelines are still being set. But rest assured, we really post in our page, no? That's DICTR7, the announcements, especially if you want to avail of our startup grant fund. No? So for those who have ideas or for those who have MVPs already, then you can actually prepare. No? Since one of these days, the grant fund na program of the ICT will be announced in full detail. Right? Then we have the Philippine Startup Portal. So DICT is actually in charge, no, among the tripartite agencies between us and DTI and DOST for the database of our startups in the country, which is really important, no, in mapping out our startup ecosystem. So in the portal, there will be information of startups, no, contact information, funding information. There will be, the portal is also available for online inquiry, registration and application, and the release of endorsement, no? So it houses everything that is related to our startups, no, as mandated by RA 11337. I believe that it is still on its beta nga stage, no? Beta testing na nga stage. Although it is already up and running, so you might want to visit startup.gov.ph, or you can immediately or directly register at register.startup.gov.ph/home. That is our official portal for all the startups, no, in the country. Whether you want to be granted by for funds by DTI or by DOST or by DICT, since there is a guideline on if you are already granted by a fund by DICT, you cannot be granted anymore by DTI or DOST, and the other way around, no, if you are granted already by DTI, then perhaps you could not avail of the opportunities from DOST and DICT anymore for a certain time or for a certain period, no? So such monitoring will be done through our portal, no? The PH Startup Portal. So you might want to visit such, no? So I think that's it. I hope I didn't exceed the 45-minute mark, Sir Engelbert, no? But if in case you want to contact us, no, the DICT7 Facebook page is facebook.com/DICTR7. You can also directly message me. I respond easily if I'm not busy. If in case you have some questions or clarifications or inquiries regarding our startup initiatives from DICT, no, my name in Facebook is the same name that you see in our participants list here in our Zoom. Huh? So thank you very much, and I believe there is a Q&A later after. Tama ba, Sir Engelbert? Then I'll
Yes, Sir Josh. You're right there. Thank you, Sir Joshua. That was very helpful input from you, Sir Josh. No, I hope some of our Hosanian students, the faculty here, will be able to participate in the various projects and initiatives of the ICT, and especially avail the ICT Startup Grant Fund, no, to tumataginting na 1 million po. So, before we move
Actually,
on
Sir
to our...
Engelbert, 1 million lang.
Yes, 1
Because,
million lang.
yeah, because in DTI and DOST, I think they have Series A, Series B na funding more than 1
Oh,
million. So,
wow,
ano.
wow. Thank you for that, Sir Josh. So before we move on to our second talk, I'm sure you're excited, no, to listen also for the initiatives, the funding, policies from DTI. We'll have a quick 5-minute break if you want to visit the comfort room or take some snacks. So please enjoy the break. See you after 5 minutes. Thank you. Good morning once again and welcome back. Allow me to introduce our second speaker. She is currently the Regional Director of the Department of Trade and Industry in Region 7. She has held various positions in all the four provinces of Central Visayas. First as Division Chief at DTI Negros Oriental and subsequently as Provincial Director in the provinces of Siquijor, Bohol, and Cebu. She later on held the position of Assistant Regional Director. At present, she is aggressively promoting the adoption of digital strategies and utilization of e-commerce to assist the recovery of small businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Under Director Arbon's leadership, the RISE, Resilient, Innovative, Sustainable Entrepreneurs program was conceived to help more businesses thrive during the pandemic. This program is basically a business recovery plan preparation where participating MSMEs are each paired with a coach from the academe and also from business. In 2021, RD Arbon helped conceptualize a free online business coaching and mentoring course specifically for digital services entrepreneurs called the Digital Services Entrepreneurs Advancement Mentoring or DREAM program. The program aims to produce confident local entrepreneurs with the right mindset and basic management skills, which will enable them to sustain their enterprises amidst the challenges of the pandemic and new normal conditions. DTI partners across the entire e commerce ecosystem have provided their expertise and experiences on how to take advantage of the digital space and the utilization of effective financial technology. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome the Regional Director of DTI 7. So we're very honored here, Miss Nanette Arbon. Good morning, Mom Nanette.
Good morning.
Morning, Mom. You may now begin, Mom Nanette, no?
Um, I believe you have my slide,
Yeah,
my
yes,
deck.
yes. We will share the presentation, Mom Nanette. Thank you.
Yeah,
All
sorry.
right. No.
Sorry, I would have wanted to control this, but yeah, I just came from another meeting.
Yes, yes.
Can you please yeah. Thank you. Good morning. First let me congratulate the organizers for this webinar for government policy and funding initiatives for Filipino startups. So I'm here to um, talk about what DTI has to offer with regards innovation and startup related uh, events, programs, and activities. Okay, next please. Next slide, please. First, let me start off with an overview of this thing we call inclusive innovation industrial strategy, or the IQS. No, um, basically, DTI is in a lot of space. No, a lot of people know DTI for price monitoring, prices of commodities, um, running after, consumer rights and advocacy. But we are also very strong in terms of MSME development, and also we are in the forefront. One of three agencies, our partners are DICT, DOST, and of course us DTI, in promoting the growth of innovation, more innovation in the country. And we're looking at this from an ecosystem point of view. So when we came up with this inclusive innovation industrial strategy, we really looked at the innovation ecosystem, what is there, who are the players, and so what kind of programs do we need to push. So when we see this IQ S strategy, this is DTI, but we're doing this with our other partner agencies. For example, one of the features of iCubeS is Embrace Industry 4.0. So this is really about smart manufacturing, new technologies, AI, 5G and the like, no. So when we talk about this, right now, DTI is really piloting for the establishment of AI research center, pilot center, something like that. Because right now we want to move our enterprises, MSMEs, but really also the large enterprises into the realm of Industry 4.0 for better productivity, better competitiveness, so that also we will also be an active, player in, a more digital 21st century. So right now we're putting up that AI research center, AI and Industry 4.0, to encourage enterprises to understand what it is all about, to really know what needs to be done when we say embrace Industry 4.0, because it also entails a lot of investments on the part of our enterprises if they go into this smart manufacturing. So another thing that we are also doing is pushing for innovative MSMEs and startups. So we say prepare MSMEs for Industry 4.0 and also build startup ecosystem. But when we, as in the process of preparing SMEs for Industry 4.0, actually where our MSMEs right now is really at the base level of really moving into the digital space. So this means like maybe more on the entry point to be more on e-commerce and digital marketing. And this is what we have been doing since even before COVID, but this has been accelerated in 2020 when we were all in lockdown. So to me, COVID was had a silver lining in that it accelerated acceptance of digital in our society, and that is really good for us. And our MSMEs 2 years later, while they're still struggling, but the mindset is already there. The mindset has shifted um, to more acceptance of digital solutions and digital as part of their business processes. Another strategy within the IQBS is this integration of production systems. So this is linking manufacturing with agriculture and services and participation in global change. So earlier I mentioned about innovation ecosystems. We're also looking at global value chains and locally at our own local value chains or supply chains. So we have priority commodities. We have 12 priority commodities from high tech manufacturing to agri-based like even coffee and cacao. And we're really active in these value chains and doing upgrading strategies. But the fact here is we need to integrate or embed more innovation in these value chains, and especially with those in the agri-based sector. So this continues to form really a major focus on our part on how we can, you know, insert, promote, or embed more innovation in this. It can be in the form of processes, it can be in the form of new products or variants, or it can even be in the form of adoption of new technologies. Ease of doing business is also front and center of our programs. Basically, this is about simplification of processes and automation, power, logistics, infrastructure. Because as you know, this affects our attractiveness as an investment destination, and also our ability of within our economy for businesses to grow, and for to encourage also new entrepreneurs to enter the mainstream business. So ease of doing business is really important. In terms of power, logistics, and infrastructure, this is something that we are also getting involved in. In fact, there has been a series of regional, supra-regional consultations with regards logistics, because with more, of course, logistics is now a problem post COVID. No, I mean, we all know that, but with burgeoning and rising e-commerce, e-commerce or e-commerce economy, we foresee that this is really an important this is really an important sector to look into and see how we can make it more efficient and competitive. Um, this also affects, of course, the prices of our products because it affects our efficiency and competitiveness in terms of moving products from one end to another. So we're looking at this closely and looking at, the policies, the relevant policies are needed to make sure that we see some improvement in our logistics sector. In the upskill and reskill workforce, this talks about upgrading education curricula, skills training programs, and improving digital skills. So in a 21st century setting wherein technology is really doubling or accelerating, or we all know this, um, we really need to upskill and reskill our workforce. Um, Otherwise, a large chunk of our workforce will be redundant. We will have redundant skills. So this is a continuing struggle. Is it a struggle, or it's a continuing effort on our part? I think we are with academe. Academe is also has a very prominent role to play here. And of course, in terms of government, we also do a lot of skills reskilling, upskilling things, events that we do. And of course, Tesla is also there and doing their thing, no? So, but the fact is, we need to pull ourselves together and really look at what are the new business models out there in terms of educating our workforce, and also in terms of how do we um move faster in terms of, yeah, upskilling and reskilling, because sometimes, most of the time, we are really behind. By the time we need a new skill, it's really like already also outdated. So the world is really spinning faster, and then the technology is accelerating this thing, and here we are humans really trying to grapple with this and being trying to stay relevant to the time. So I think this is one of the greatest challenges of our time now, this upskilling and reskilling of our workforce. In terms of innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem, we are trying to promote research, commercialization, and creation of new products, services, and business models. We would like to work with academe, our SUCs, our private sector HEIs, so that if there's research there somewhere, no, this can be moved further up the value chain, no, move it from just mere research to commercialization. So this is also an ongoing effort on the part of DTI, in coordination with its partners like DOST. Next, please. So in terms of policy reforms to support startups, there have been a flurry of laws that have been passed. First is the Philippine Innovation Act, um, and the Innovative Startup Act. Both of these laws were passed, I think, pre-COVID 2019. I think they were passed in the same year, and I remember we were really happy that uh, in 2019 we're happy that these laws were passed because we really needed this. And the Philippine Innovation Act aims to generate and scale up action in all education, training, research, and development initiatives. One of the major features of the Philippine Innovation Act is the establishment of the National Innovation Council, headed by the President. And likewise, okay, later I'll talk about that later, how we are reacting to that as a region. So the Philippine Innovation Act, and I don't know if you're aware of it. Recently they came up with a call for grant proposals. So every year, I think there's like a few million, a few hundred, was it a 200 million? This year there was a 200 million fund, and they were calling for proposals that that they can review and approve. No grant. It was an innovation grant. In the Innovative Startup Act, it provides benefits and removes constraints to encourage the establishment and operation of innovative new enterprises and businesses. This is really for startups. The Philippine Innovation Act was really like policy for the entire country in terms of innovation. The Innovative Startup Act is something policy for new enterprises and businesses, or what we call startups. In the Ease of Doing Business Act, it aims to streamline the current systems and procedures of government services, making registering our businesses easier, faster, and with less friction. One person corporation allows a single person to form a corporation without the need for a board of directors or shareholders. And the CREATE law, basically, these are fiscal incentives to innovation-driven activities and attract high-tech investments. And the Foreign Investment Act facilitates the entry of more players in the domestic market to foster competition and introduce innovation. So these are like the policy environment to support more innovation in the country. Next, please. The Philippine Startup Development Program basically is composed of this previous sorry. First is to support research and development. This is more on the purview of DOST, and support and promote the participation of startups in local and institutional, international competitions, conferences, and events. So why are we doing this? Because one of the things that our startups need to do is really how they develop their business model, or how they develop look at their target market. Because sometimes we just target the solutions. Basically startups provide solutions, and then sometimes we target a very niche market or very small market, and that proves that stymies the growth of the startups, because it's really a very small market. And so we need to broaden our world view, and really maybe when we start a startup, starts ideation and goes through the market validation, and grows they pivot and whatever, develop their business model, they should already start looking at a broader market, like at least the ASEAN market. So because that at least that will already ensure that you have a big enough market for the kind of solution that you're offering. So, and one of the weaknesses of our startups is really this lack of worldview, lack of an international point of view. So that's why this is one of the interventions that the Startup Development Program is offering to support and promote the participation of startups in local and international competitions, conferences, and events, so that we can be exposed, so that we can have a broader view, and so that we can understand the bigger international market, or even like the regional as ASEAN market. Another is the collaborate with local and international enablers. This is really also part of being, having a global outlook, and develop and amend policies and regulations. So previous to this, I was already talking about some of the laws that have been created to support this, and support the development and growth of startup enterprises, and promote access to startup development programs. Okay, next slide, please. So, and accelerating the Philippine startup ecosystem development, these are the strategies. We want to grow the number of startups. Accelerated growth can be achieved through a larger, more coordinated ecosystem, and through the promotion of technology entrepreneurship. So this is something that I would like to emphasize, and I think Josh, the previous speaker, was already talking about the common, meeting points wherein we partner with each other, because really it's an ecosystem. We're looking at it from an ecosystem point of view, and we should all look at it from an ecosystem point of view, because we not it's there's so many moving parts, and these moving parts have to coordinate with each other. So in order for us to grow the number of startups so that we can provide a better enabling environment for them to nurture them, for them to grow. And another strategy is to increase early stage funding. These are private angels and angel investors need to be activated into the Manila ecosystem. Yeah, this is talking about Manila, but in Cebu, we're also talking to the Cebu Chamber for a similar thing. Also, a fund of funds can be a strong support for early stage financing. So, the pandemic, I mentioned the silver lining of the pandemic. The other thing there is because we were when we were all locked down, we moved fast into e-commerce. No, we really moved. Behaviors changed. We used fintech more. We shopped online more. So this presented a lot of opportunities, and investors or funders or VCs are already a lot of them are already in Manila or in the Philippines, looking to fund startups. So the you know the startup environment now post COVID compared to, let's say, 2018 and 2019 is really more active and better and stronger. And part of that is because of COVID, wherein we also changed our behaviors and embraced more digital. So when we did that, we presented we expanded the market for our startups, and not only for our startups in the Philippines, but also startups from other countries. So we're really competing in a global market wherever we are, whether we're in the Philippines or wherever we are. Startups are competing in a global environment, and this is why earlier we said that we need to also imbue internationalization and international point of view in our startups. And then build startup quality, bolster founder know-how, strengthen market reach, increase talent quality. So I guess the academe, our schools, has a big role to play here in terms of increasing talent quality, and in terms of founder know-how. We also all know, based on experience and based on experience in other countries also, that startups, a lot of our startups here are really young people. So they come out of college and they start. But then if you really look at, facts and data, we find out that the more successful startups are those whose founders are more mature and who already also have other experience. So these are some of the things that we are looking at. And, we need to also percolate. Our startups also are starting to learn and be better. I've seen their pitches like from 5 years ago, and compared to 5 years ago, compared to 3 years ago, compared to now, the pitches are really, really vastly improved and very, very professional now. So in terms of that, we founder know-how. We have been in a way successful in bolstering founder know-how, but I guess we need more action in terms of market reach and talent quality. In terms of talent quality, we also have to take note that our startups are competing with the talent demand coming from BPOs, di ba? BPOs, and even the big BPOs, and even the small BPOs that are really coming out of the woodwork now. A lot of people don't go back to work. They just set up their own little freelance operation, and pretty soon, before you know it, they're like a small BPO, and they also need talent. So talent quality, we're not only talking about talent quality, but we are also talking about the required density of talent, so that we can supply the demand for talent that is really out there, no? And the kind of talent that we need are really more on the digital side already. And expand global connectedness, engage with foreign partners through investment and knowledge exchange programs among angel investors, VC startups, founders, enablers. So again, there's really that need to go international, have a broader point of view, have an international network, because really that is the market for our startups. The domestic market is good, but the domestic market is small. If we want to grow, we have to look into the other markets that in our neighboring areas, our neighboring countries, and really target those markets. And in those markets, they have their own ecosystem. They have their own angel investors, VCs, startup founders, neighbors. So these are things that we need to look at, expand our network, and not stay just within our geographic boundaries. So that is not the way of startups. When you go digital, you're really already testing, or you're really already free of the physical boundaries that limit us. Okay, next slide, please. These are some of the startup development programs that are um, supported by DTI. This IDEA, incubation, development, and entrepreneurship assistance, advanced accelerating development, valuation, and corporate entrepreneurship, and GAP, or the Global Acceleration Program. IDEA aims to assist startups that are transitioning from having minimum viable product to becoming established businesses. So, so from just an idea, ideation, and maybe a proof of concept to really becoming a business, a registered business, being mainstream. So we're graduating from just a little startup, toying with our ideas, and so, to something with Koana, with established markets, market validation, established markets, and really growing the business. And in advance, it aims to assist startups progress through scaling up business operations and enable them to deliver products and services that will address strategic societal needs. Startups are in the commercial stages of development. So moving them up further, maturing maturing the startups further, making the business strong and growing the business strong, widening their markets, scaling up, in short. In the Global Acceleration Program, it immerses Philippine startups in the ASEAN ecosystem to enable them to pursue international business development, fundraising, and other strategic opportunities. So again, this is what I was talking about, internationalization, and looking at everything as an ecosystem, and not only an ecosystem within the country, but at least the ecosystem being part of the ASEAN ecosystem, for starters. No? Next slide, please. The Startup Venture Fund is a fund created as a result of the, I think, Philippine Innovation Act. And it comes from the National Development Corporation. So this is the first government-led startup investment fund aimed to help startups develop their product, scale up, and expand. So yeah, aims to develop the startup ecosystem by, one, investing in startups alongside accredited co-investment partners, and two, investing in selected venture capital funds that in turn will invest in Philippine startups. So the first one is really about directly investing in startups. The second one is investing in venture capital. We call it fund of funds. It's fund of funds. So for example, we have an example of, we have a VC, and some VCs, like VCs in the Philippines, are also applying for 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 applying for funding from the startup venture fund. And this in turn, they will use, as VCs, they will use this to fund their startups that they are supporting. So first, direct investment in in startups. The second is investment in venture capital funds. Okay. The startup venture fund, the one who sits there, DTI is there. I'm part of the investment committee. DICT is there. Our DIRIC also is part of that. DOSC is also there. The representative is an RD somewhere else in another area. And of course, DOF and the National Development Corporation are also there, among others. So right now, it's looking at some applications for the fund, and not only from startups but also from VCs. Next, please. Startup development programs. These are like the Manila programs. These are the Manila programs that we have no so far. And we also have this iLeap and the Smart Link. The iLeap provides opportunities and assistance to startups and startup enablers to participate in local and international events and expos. Again, this is really part of our internationalization efforts. And the Smart Link connects traditional MSMEs and large enterprises with startups that can provide digital solutions for their operations. Okay, so we're also looking at, basically, if you look at startups, what they're really doing is provide solutions, and a lot of them are providing solutions for MSMEs and even the big enterprises. So what we do is to link them, because the MSMEs and these other large enterprises are really their prospective markets. So we link them to these markets through several events and other ways of linking MSMEs with startups and large enterprises with startups. Next, please. Regional Innovation Centers is a project of DTI in partnership with our usual partners of DOSP. Basically, it's really promoting innovation in the countryside. So for Region 7, you notice here this I Strike Davao, Iliganay, etc. For Region 7, it's really startup 7 Up. It's really Startup Island or 7 Up. Startup Island is the brand that we have been using since 2016. That's really Region 7. And then what this is really not a regional inclusive innovation centers is not really like a physical center. It's really a platform. It's a platform which aims to increase collaboration among innovation stakeholders and generate innovative product process. So it's really a push for more collaboration. So earlier we mentioned about the commercialization of research, moving from research as research to something that can be commercialized. And this is something that the RICS aims to do, really strengthening the innovation ecosystem within the region. And one of the things that needs to be done there is to increase collaboration and information flow within that ecosystem, because the ecosystem has a lot, as we all know, has a lot of players. And so these players, these stakeholders, have to network, have to keep information flowing within that sector, within the players itself, the innovation ecosystem, so that we can promote, let's say, if we're talking about R&D from the universities, the question is how can we move an R&D thing to full commercialization. So that's another thing. Or there's something that somebody who has done a prototype, so that's something that can also be considered like an R&D, a prototype, and move that up the chain for commercialization. And another thing is really just like DOST, for example, there's a lot of programs that can support innovation within enterprises. So like their setup program and all that stuff. But this information is not widely disseminated. So it's really just information flow and really pushing programs that are already there that can be used to support the ecosystem. So in terms of Region 7, we have done a lot of, you know, pocket pocket collaborations and interventions and partnerships. That's really active. But to make sure that we're able to put this into a bigger perspective, we just this year we passed at the Regional Development Council the formation of a subcommittee called the Regional Innovation Committee. So that the Regional Innovation Committee will be like it's not a link because there's a National Innovation Council, right? There's a National Innovation Council because of the Philippine Innovation Act. One of that is the formation of the National Innovation Council. So our counterpart to the National Innovation Council will be the Regional Innovation Committee, which is embedded within the Regional Development Council. So we passed this just this June, and then there's a new set of officers now. So then that will be activated as as the new set of officers take their start start the ball rolling in terms of the meetings and all that stuff. Things are rolling, but not as fast as we want to. But the fact is, we cannot also move fast because there's really a lot of stakeholders, and then with all their little, also their own initiatives and their own pace of work and all interests. But we're hoping for a rallying point, and this is what the RICS is all about: a rallying point to move innovation, to put innovation in the forefront, in all our programs, in our mindsets. And yeah, we hope to see more action in this with regards to RICS. Next, please. So this is what I was talking about, the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. So there are a lot of players and support organizations, government, there are service providers, there are our enterprises, both big and small. We have our co-working spaces, accelerators, incubators, innovation hubs, R&D labs, S&T parks, event meetups, funders, universities. So I think this mix of institutions and events. But so if this is the ecosystem, we need to spark collaboration, more partnerships, more networking, and I think a shared vision within this ecosystem. So if we're talking about Region 7, then we're hoping to do this via the Regional Innovation Committee of the RDC, and of course in partnership. That committee will be composed of representatives from each of these innovation ecosystem players that we have identified. Next, please. So in Central Visayas, we started Startup Island in 2016. This was really our program for startups. Back then, it was only the schools, maybe in the schools and maybe some startups. The Cebu, we all say that the Cebu ecosystem is next to Manila, but actually, really, really, compared to Manila, we're very small. But then, of course, if we compare ourselves to the others, then we're like, okay, we're more established. But so we were able to do this. We started with a mentoring program. This is around 2017, 2018. We conceptualized it and then started running it, I think, 2017 or 2018. And basically, the mentoring program is really designed for startups. So this is locally run, but then we have startups signing up, and then we also have some startups that have been successful after they graduated from the program. They went on to join bigger programs in Manila. So the Startup Island mentoring program is really a good starting point. startups that are just new and really finding their way um, within the ecosystem. And the second M is match. So this is what I mentioned. We're matching startups with MSMEs and business enterprises, and of course with funding sources. We're doing mixers. Before COVID, we were doing monthly meetups in annual slingshot events. This year, this will be back. The last slingshot we had was slingshot is a conference, a big conference, big tech conference that we organized. The last slingshot we had was in 2019, but this year we will bring it back sometime in November because November is startup month. And of course, the fourth M is makers. So this is where the Fab Labs come in. So we have Fab Fest, we have competition, we call it Fab Siklaban, and then we're also growing maker communities. So I don't know how aware you are of makers, maker labs, maker spaces, and Fab Labs. I'm sure you have your own there in your school. But here in Region 7, we have like 8 or 9 DTI funded Fab Labs. And most of these, I'm sorry to say, um, are located in state universities because of, you know, the guidelines. I know it sounds so, how come guidelines and all that stuff. But yeah, it's really because of the guidelines and of the guidelines of the fund that we're using to set up Fab Labs. And that is why our Fab Labs are most, or if not all of our Fab Labs are in state universities. But the Fab Labs really is a way of, you know, what are in the Fab Labs there? We have 3D printers, we have laser cutters, we have electronic workbench and all that stuff. Basically, it's digital fabrication. So we are building skills for digital fabrication in Fab Labs. So it's like an informal thing. People go there and they learn stuff. They do their own prototyping. So we're also building maker communities. As we build these maker communities and as we build them bigger, hopefully and wider, then it also builds a culture of innovation because that's really the Fab Labs are really prototyping spaces, and this allows them to test out ideas, build proof of concept, and really enter the first stages of being a startup, an innovative startup. The fifth M is our MSME startups and MSMEs. We're linking them. We're doing e-commerce, and also we're active in the creative economy. So in the creative economy, as we know, this is also very wide. No, I mean this can run the gamut from dancing and cultural and pasalubong and whatever crafts to also digital like software dev and game dev. So we in August we spent the month of August doing focus group discussions with the various sectors in the creative economy. So these are those in the digital world and those in the traditional brick and mortar world of the creatives. So the FGTs will help us craft more relevant programs so that we can be more attuned to their needs and so we can design better programs for them. Of course, with our other partners. And but then maybe I will just announce here that we're going to have an event in October 6, 7, and 8. This is really for the digital side of the creative. So on October 6, we will have a game development conference here in Cebu. We will be inviting game devs, people in game dev outfits, and also people from from schools, so that we can raise awareness of the opportunities in game dev, and then how do we sometimes because it's like a hobby, we like game dev, but we don't understand that it's really also a business. So this is really looking at the business side of game development. So not only the talent, but also raising this the skills to become an entrepreneur. So that's October 6th, game dev, and October 7 on and 8, this is like original content. This is with CCAP. Game dev, we're doing it with GDAP, the Game Development Association of the Philippines. And then on October 7 and 8, we are doing this with CCAP, the Content Creation Association of the Philippines. Excuse me. So I hope we see you there, and we see your students and see your faculty. Basically, this is very relevant to all of us because this presents this allows us to enter new markets that we haven't really entered. We have the skills, but we haven't really established ourselves in these markets. We consume a lot of animation content, but we haven't really also developed our own animation content, put it out there in the international or the global scene. No? So we want to push this not only in Region 7, but this is really a nationwide effort. This is a nationwide policy. But I think in Region 7, we are more or less a little bit advanced compared to the others. I think we already have the mindset here, we have the talent here, and and so we hope to we hope to have a new breed of MSMEs that utilize digital tools, business models, and go international. So game dev and original content. And I, I also listened to some part of Josh's uh, talk earlier, and he was talking about startup mapping. So for startup mapping in Cebu was done in June with Kubo, and DICT did startup mapping in Dumaguete last, I think, August. And then DTI will fund another startup mapping in Bohol with Kubo this coming Saturday, September 10. So in effect, after everything, we will have finished mapping Cebu, Bohol, and Negros Oriental. Siquijor is too small right now. There's no startup activity there. So we have finished mapping the entire region, and we'll put it all together and design programs accordingly. With regards to MSMEs startup, we entered into an MOU with Startup Village. This is really like linking our startups with MSMEs. When we were doing Startup Island, these startups with MSMEs, we were linking our local startups with our MSMEs. Now, after 2.5 years of COVID, there are really plethora or host a lot of startups out there already providing solutions for MSMEs. So we partnered with Startup Village so that we can, our startups, wherever they are, not really just from Cebu, present their products or solutions to our local MSMEs. Our local MSMEs will be able to access technology and hopefully improve their competitiveness, and at the same time startups will be able to work with MSMEs, and MSMEs are really also part of their market so that they will also be able to grow their businesses. Okay, next please. We'll be talking about innovation in Santa Visaya. So this I mentioned already about Fab Lab. So there's maker communities, and this is really coming from the Shared Services Facilities project or program of the Department of Trade and Industry. So we're working with universities, state universities. We're working with the Global Fab Lab Network and MSME clients and makers, not yet MSMEs, but they really have a lot of innovators who just go to Fab Labs and do something amazing there. So this is something that we also want to promote and to make it more accessible. Hopefully later this year, we will be launching the Fab Lab at the TESDA Regional Innovation Center near the IT Park. So the TESDA has a building there inside. They call it an innovation center. So what we did is we teamed up with them. We are procuring equipment so that we can put up a Fab Lab within center. So that will improve access also to these types of equipment from our communities. Okay, and of course, this will develop the innovation ecosystem. We're hoping that with that initiative, the Tesla will be more comfortable with understanding digital fabrication, the kind of digital fabrication that's done at the Fab Labs, and hopefully they can provide trainings because I think they have accredited schools and they have this huge budget for training, so they can work with accredited schools and offer trainings for digital fabrication, and this in turn will foster more upskilling. Remember the upskilling and reskilling we were talking about earlier. So this will contribute towards the upskilling, reskilling, the need for upskilling and reskilling, and then uh, and of course improve the kind of trainings that we are offering. So something that is more attuned to a digital and a more connected world. Okay. And of course, we're also hoping that with denser skills or number of talents in this area, we'll be able to attract investors also in these areas. That investors who need these skills. Okay, next please. Fabrication laboratories. This is just talking about fabrication laboratories and its role in COVID-19. So we did some PPEs when the PPEs were not there yet. So this is like early 2020, maybe April. In April, remember we all remember like it was I think COVID was like our World War II or something. COVID was our war for our generation, and then there was nothing, not even like so hard to get a mask at the time. So the and then the with all this issue at the hospitals, they don't have this PPE. So the Fab Labs really did a lot of fabricating, and we distributed this to the hospitals and frontliners. So at the time we were able to distribute about 80,000 face shields to our frontliners. And of course, Typhoon Odette, this is yeah, like nearly a year ago. So this is about like charging, because we Fab Labs have this all sorts of equipment, so they can make this equipment, they can make prototypes. And with in partnership with Field Ready, which is an international NGO, um, NGO really built for organized for disaster response. So this Field Ready partnered with FabLab UP Cebu and Light of Hope to locally design and manufacture portable solar charging kits that were deployed to Typhoon Odette affected island barangays. So this is also like our ability to respond, and having also the knowledge and the technology and even the materials so that we need to respond to calamities. Okay, next slide, please. And of course, the Fab Labs, still more on Fab Labs. We did workshop for kids because Fab Labs are not just for, it's really for kids up to, it's really accommodates a wide age group. So like maybe 10 or lower to maybe like 70, whatever. You can still go to the Fab Lab and do your thing. So we did workshop for kids and MicroPython and internet. So these are stuff that we do at the Fab Labs. Next, please. And in terms of we have this industry cluster enhancement program. We are embedding innovation in all programs. In the ICE, Industry Cluster Enhancement Program, we have priority sectors, and these are bamboo, cacao, coconut, coffee, wearables, and home style processed fruits and nuts. We're trying to embed innovation in this. We're working with MSMEs, we're working with farmers, we're working with people who are manufacturing finished products like chocolate or coffee or what, and then we are introducing innovation and technology in all aspects of the value chain. And of course, I think this was mentioned earlier, the RISE, we're doing this with Academe. This is a one-on-one firm level consultancy, 20 MSMEs, 3 universities. So we're linking MSMEs to the knowledge in universities. The universities are supposed to be the ones creating knowledge. So we're trying to link these knowledge creators or people with knowledge to our MSMEs who also need this. No, the ones in universities have knowledge, but the MSMEs have the entrepreneurial savvy. No, so we're trying to link these two. I don't know, is it a school of thought or these two different animals? One the knowledge creation and one the entrepreneurial savvy. So hopefully the collaboration will form a new breed of MSMEs also. Next, please. So that's it. So yeah, so I think I don't know how long I talked, but um, I think that's about it. I covered a lot of stuff already in terms of innovation and policies that we're doing to promote the growth of a new breed of MSMEs that are ready for the 21st century. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Director Arbon. It was indeed another valuable sharing. So finally, we are now moving to another highlight of this session, and that is the panel forum or the Q&A. So for this part of the program, we are now opening the floor for your questions and comments. So please don't hesitate to put your questions, no, or comments in the chat box, or if you'd like to say it orally, you may unmute yourself. All right. So to start, I think there's a question from Sir Rex Villavelas, faculty from the education. No, I think this is addressed to Sir Josh. Um, will the PSC and the ICT Grant Fund be open to purely faculty composition or purely staff composition, not needing students as part of the team? Is it okay, Sir Josh?
Yeah, thank you for that, Sir Engelbert. No, I intentionally didn't answer sa chat because I believe we have a Q&A for this. Now,
Yes. Yeah.
mhm. So unfortunately for our PSC this year, no. By the way, hi, Ma'am Net. So this year, for last year there was a professional category and a student category for PSC.
Mm,
So, but this year there's only a student category for the reason that
mm,
um, we have a startup grant fund that is available. No? So we only have a student category for this year sa PSC.
mm.
And unfortunately, it should be a composition of three students and one teacher or one mentor.
Okay.
No, not
All right.
really. Not
Mentor
really.
can be teaching faculty or staff in the university,
Yes, precisely.
right? Professional staff.
Yeah, for as long as he or she can help mentor
Yes.
our student teams.
All right. Well said, Sir Josh. No, thank you so much. Um, Another question. I think this is both for you, Sir Josh, and Mom Nanette. Most of the fundings discussed are for the startups. Do you also have funding? I think uh, Sir Josh is pertaining to your department. No? Do you have funding for setting up of a TBI as well, or any financial support, no, for establishment of TBIs?
TBIs, that is with the Department of Science and Technology. In fact, there
Oh.
are already TBIs here, right? I mean, there's the HERIT program. There's a TBI, new TBIs, no? There's the
Mm,
TBI at CIT University, if I remember it right. Maybe San Carlos also has one with the DOST.
mm.
Silliman University also
Yes,
has
yes.
one. In Region 7, that's what I know. But
Mhm.
that's a DOST thing,
All
the
right, all
TBI.
right. Noted, Ma'am Nanette, no? Okay. Another question from Sir Engineer Randy Salazar. Is there a possibility that newly graduated students can join contest in the DICT or in the DTI contests? Fresh grad, or is
Um,
it? Mm, go ahead, sir.
yeah, we only have one competition in the ACT and that is PSC. So yeah, unfortunately, if the professional level was still present today, then they can join. No, we are still unsure for next year if we will have it back, no, ang professional category. But as of this time, only students currently enrolled.
Currently enrolled. All
Yeah,
right. Ongoing, no? Ongoing.
yeah.
Okay. Mom Nanette, would you like to say something?
I think I said a lot of things already,
All right.
but I know maybe a bit confusing because I said a lot of things. But basically, the fact is, innovation is really important, and we have a new set of cabinet secretaries coming in right now. So we
Mm,
have a new secretary now, and
mm.
this new secretaries used to be president of UP. So
Oh.
our move for innovation, which we started like during the time of SecMon, is really
Mm,
being amplified right now. So we're
mm,
really talking about science and technology and all that stuff. So we're looking at, applying, science and technology. We need this because we need our MSMEs. Not only our MSMEs, our big enterprises also to be competitive. It's really about
mm,
competitiveness. And the only way we can do that is really through more innovation, absorption of more technology, and also having a mindset for
mm.
all of this stuff. So these are things that we are introducing to our MSMEs. So we're going down to the level of MSMEs. If you know the kind of MSMEs that we have, you would know how this is such an uphill thing for us. But this is really something that we all need to do as a country. No,
Right, right.
innovation, technology, and because this is the stuff that we need to do so that we can raise ourselves and also to the level of our other, the peers, our other countries. We all know about these ratings, competitiveness ratings, innovation ratings, and all that stuff. These are all related. So if we're low in innovation, we're really be low in investment, we're also be low in whatever. So this is something that it's we're doing as an ecosystem at some uh, I mentioned two, right? Value chain and ecosystems. These are both things that are our models that we are doing for our agri-based initiatives. We're talking value chain, and for our innovation initiatives, we're talking ecosystems. So there's space for everybody there, especially academia. You have a prominent role, very critical role in all of this, in terms of talent, in terms of mindsets. So I hope we have partnerships in the future.
Yes, yes, we'd love that, no, Mom Nanette? Here's another question from Dr. Jessica Avenido. This is more of asking your personal advice or wisdom. No? This is not related to funding or innovation policy. Let me read. No? For individuals preparing for their retirement, how many years do you recommend that they must start their engaging in the new plan or business that they are thinking of engaging once retired? 5 years?
I'm in that class. I'm in that retirement class also.
Do you plan to engage in
So
business or start up, Mom Nanette?
I'm not. I'm not really sure. Yeah, it's because I've been with entrepreneurs for so long, so I know the challenges and the opportunities, and yeah. So I'm not sure if I'm cut out to be an entrepreneur, but if I will be an entrepreneur, it will be on something digital. It will be on something digital like service. That's really something that we are. I failed to mention that we had this mentoring program we started last year and we will do again this year. We call it Dream. This is the digital services enabler, something basically the freelancers. These freelancers they join platforms and they get contracts for themselves, and after a while they're so comfortable with it, and they see opportunities, so they get contracts and start hiring people to to do the contracts, no. So these are our this is our target for the dream program. It's teaching them how to be better entrepreneurs na from from a single me as an entrepreneur, me as a brand, to somebody who is now an entrepreneur hiring people. So when you start hiring people, you have to manage people, you have to manage your finances, you have to be aware of laws. Like if you're a freelancer, it's a international market, so you have to be aware of money laundering laws and all that stuff. So we this is something that we are also doing, a mentoring program for them so that they can become better entrepreneurs. So if you ask me if I would be an entrepreneur, but I don't know if I will be, that would be the way to go for me,
Mhm.
because I like digital.
Yes, yes. But you won't recommend a particular
Could I,
number of years in preparation for that business
Number of
on the net.
years, honestly, I'm 62 and I haven't really prepared for anything.
could I just
Oh,
say on that, the question is, how long? Um, typically look for an innovation-based new business. 5 years is an
5 years
absolute minimum.
minimum.
Most innovation-based activities don't start moving into positive ROI until 10.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Just a regular old new business, whether it might be a coffee shop, a non-innovation based new business.
Yes.
Look, minimum of 3. Again, you're not going to move into positive ROI territory
Mm.
until that at at least. But I'd also make mention that whether your business is an innovation-based business, or what we refer to as a Me Too business, you need to factor in at least one catastrophic failure during that time. So the business
That's
that
true.
you start out with, that's going to
Yeah,
take you through into retirement and so forth, I can almost guarantee you will fail at,
that's
unfortunately.
true. Yeah,
And you'll take those learnings and apply those to the next business idea. So it's both a matter of time, but also assuming that you will lose. But certainly, if you're looking at a new business to sustain you in retirement, don't count on it making money for at least 5, and so for innovation-based businesses, 10 years. So most entrepreneurs are working 2 jobs. Their day-to-day job where they earn a salary, while they put together their business plan and they do their market analysis and all that sort of thing. So yes, it's not all fame and glory, unfortunately. Being an entrepreneur is a tough,
yeah,
tough road.
yeah. I agree with
That's
Mr.
true.
Ross. It's really a lot of hard work, and failure is really always in the horizon. And failure
Mm,
is, Mr. Ross, we also have this thing about failure. So this is something that a mindset that we need to change. The failure is really not failure. Failure is a lesson.
mm,
It's a
Mm.
lesson that you need
that's
to learn.
right.
So, and it's not something to be ashamed of, or it's not something that should stop you or something. So this is something that is a lot of Filipinos are very allergic to, and this is something that we need to change.
Mm,
And I guess academe, you're working with these young people, you're shaping young minds. So
mm.
you need to shape these young minds that failure is really part of life
Yeah, and it's
and
yeah, the
business.
the Americans are critical of the American way of doing things in a lot of cases, but nonetheless, the Silicon Valley attitude towards things is that a lot of investors literally will not invest with an entrepreneur who hasn't had at least one major failure.
Yeah.
There does tend to be a different attitude towards failure there. Culturally, it can be difficult. And Australia has the same attitude where I'm from, that people think in terms of failure rather than lessons. And I'd agree absolutely that we do need to
Yeah. Yeah.
challenge that and teach our young people a healthy attitude towards those learnings.
Yeah, and that's why most successful, a large percentage, major percentage of successful startups are really already managed by older people, not young people, because these are people who have gone through the, whatever they have gone through. They have gone through they have got the experience, they have gone through some sort of failures, they have more wisdom and more
Correct.
entrepreneurial savvy, I guess.
Mm.
In the end, if we take out the, sexiness of startups, it's really about business.
Yes, yes.
So that is something we should understand. Now,
Mm.
it's really about business.
Right,
It's
right.
really about markets. It's really about selling your service and really being relevant to your target market so that they will use your solution, no?
Right. All right. Thank you so much, no, Ma'am Nanette. Um, are there any questions? All right. There's also another question from Dr. Jess. Um, does DTI have list of um manufacturers or what um, producers of raw materials, Mom Nanette, which they could
What raw
tap or partner,
materials?
like coffee beans, for
Huh?
example, coffee growers. Do you have that kind of directory,
Tell
Mom
us the
Nanette?
raw material. Tell us the raw material.
And you can give.
Yeah, like if you're talking about
Oh,
coffee,
yeah.
we have an active coffee program. So I'm sure we have. But if
Okay.
you're talking about filaments for 3D printers, so I don't think we are doing that
All
in the
right.
Philippines. So I cannot give
All
you.
right. Noted. Noted, Mom Nanette. Thank you so much.
Could I suggest that often, and it may not be coffee, it might be industrial design. Is there a master list of industrial designers held somewhere in government or
Yeah.
paper manufacturers, whatever it may happen to be?
Yes.
Often the government, whether
Um.
it's regional, state, federal, whatever, they may not, but there will almost certainly be a relevant
Yes.
industry
Yeah.
association somewhere.
Yes.
So a Google of industry association,
Mm.
paper manufacturers, industry association or council. For instance, in Australia, where I do a lot of my work, you won't find a master list of manufacturers anywhere. There's macro statistical information, but if you want individual lists, you go to, for instance, the Geelong Manufacturing Council, and that will have the list of all 550 manufacturers in the greater Geelong region. So industry associations, Google search on those, are often a way of finding those detailed listings.
Right. We also have our own databases. Like, for example, for those who registered with us for their business names, we have them. Our business names are all now online. So we have this list, and we have all sorts of databases, but not like other countries like Australia or the US, where the consolidation of data is more sophisticated. But here, yeah, but we can have some. We can have some. There's
Right.
all sorts of data. There's the mayor's permit. There's the whatever. Yeah,
Yes,
diba?
yes.
So,
All right. Thank you so much, Mom Nanette. No, of course. Again, our sincerest thanks to our invited speakers. We're so honored and grateful for coming here, joining us in today's webinar. Sir Joshua, Domen, Mom Nanette, Arbon, and of course the Dr. Walker for sharing your wonderful ideas and giving these input. Hopefully, these inputs will come handy for all of us who are attending here in this session. So, to show our sincerest appreciation and gratitude to our honorable guest, we will be awarding the certificate of recognition. All right, so let me read. Certificate of appreciation is given to Dr. Russell Walker for giving the keynote speaker a speech or being the keynote speaker during the webinar on government innovation policy and funding initiatives for Filipino startups held on September 7, 2022 at the University of San Jose-Recoletos. Given this day, September 7, 2022, in Cebu City, Philippines, signed by the VP for Academics and Research, Reverend Father Leo G. Alaras, OAR, and the University President, Reverend Father Eduardo S. Celis Jr. OER. Then another certificate is given to certificate of appreciation is given to Sir Joshua Eleazar P. Dolmen for sharing his time and expertise as a research person during the webinar on government innovation policy and funding initiatives for Filipino startups held on September 7 at the University of San Jose-Recoletos with signatories Dr. Russell Walker, the consultant of the Recoletos TBI, Father Leo Alaras, the VP for Academics Research and the University President, Father Eduardo S. Celis Jr. And the same certificate, the same citation is given to, of course, the original director of TTI, Ma'am Maria Elena C. Arbon, with the same signatory. So congratulations. Thank you so much, no? Sir Russell, Sir Joshua, and Ma'am Nanette again. So
Thank you very much, Sir Ingve.
yeah, so
Thank you.
thank you so much. So here we will be flashing on screen the link for the evaluation form for all our participants right now. So for you to receive your certificate, please evaluate, no, accomplish the evaluation form, and then afterwards the certificate will be generated. No? So the generated e-certificate will be sent to your email. All right. Please also take note that the link for this evaluation form will remain active only for 2 hours after the session. Okay. So I think that's it. That's the end of our session. All right. We'll invite you for our next TBI session, TBI Red session, and that is the funders program. So there we will be inviting startup funders, and we'll invite all of you again to be part, so that we'll get to know also how to get funded and some opportunities and ways. All right.
Are you inviting VCs? Do you have a Cebu-based VC that you can invite?
Currently we don't have. We're not part of it. Do you have Ma'am Nanette? Can you include us so we can also invite them?
I will give you. I will connect you.
Yes.
Cebu, taga
That
Cebu
would be
gini sila.
terrific.
Go
before.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great, Ma'am Nanette. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Ma'am
they
Nanette.
partnered with Gobi, Indonesia. So it's really
Oh,
Cebu and
that's amazing. You know, that's so
yeah.
great. Thank you,
That
Ma'am
is
Nanette.
excellent. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
We hope to have, sorry, not hope, we will have a range of panel members, VCs, angels, and others, local and international. So if you're able to provide some help in that space, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll also partner with you, Sir Josh. No, aside from Ma'am Nanette of DTI, will also partner with the ICT. So again, no, in behalf of the USJR Center for Policy Research and Development Studies, the Recoletos Techno Hub, and then the ITSU of USJR, thank you so much for joining us today. Hope to see you in our next webinar. Adelante, everyone. Stay posted. And yeah, and before we officially close this session, can we take a picture first for documentation purposes? So for those who are able, we'd be glad if you can turn on your cameras and join us in the pictorial. All right. May we ask Miss Shanine to give us the cue and take the screenshot. Thank you so much.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Smile.
Page 1 na. Page 1 na.
One more. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Yun. 1. Okay. If that's it.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll keep posted with you, Ma'am Nanette, Josh, and everyone also. We'll give you some posters and information for our next sessions, the next webinars. Thank you so much. God bless everyone. Have a happy lunch.
Thank
Goodbye.
Thank you.
sir.
Bye-bye.